Cancer, welcome to your mid-April 2020 General Tarot Update. It's Raina here. So, how is everybody doing? I'm going to just see what is happening. Okay. All right, so the heart of the matter is the Ace of Pentacles. Sorry, I have this camera very close up because I have to be close to the internal mic because it doesn't work when I hook up an external mic. I mean, there's like interference. It creates a lot, and so it's like this. I know it's a very tight shot, but in any case, the Ace of Swords is about gaining clarity in your life. I think it's also about truth coming out. I'm recording this on the full moon in Libra, and Libra is a cardinal sign. You're a cardinal sign. So in your chart, Libra is the fourth house, and so this full moon, I can't say for sure for everybody because it's going to differ depending on your exact degree of sun or rising, but it could very well be in this house that you rule, this full moon, and this can bring some kind of an awareness about something that has been underneath the surface. And sometimes this is, you look to the house where it's in to see like what's going on. And it's, there's some kind of like other indication up there with the two cards that are surrounding it, that it could even be a marital issue. And I, for some reason, because I never remember the exact cards that I pick for each reading that I do, but I thought there was some other thing recently in maybe for the April reading that I did, that I already have done, and I did a little while ago, probably a couple weeks ago. So I'm not sure if that corresponds with it, if you have seen that, and it seems kind of familiar because for some reason it seemed familiar to me. Because I was saying, and I believe that was for you, unless it was Capricorn, that lunar eclipse that was in January, that may have sparked something with a relationship, a significant relationship in your life, and that created a sense of maybe that something is kind of going on behind the scenes. And if that's the case, even if that were happening and you're having to deal with, getting out of denial, if you will, it's a good thing because it means that it frees you from kind of like the delusions of, maybe I can make this work, and maybe it's real. Maybe I am really imagining things because this person is telling me that. Because even if you stay with somebody who you suspect of cheating, because they're telling you you're crazy, it doesn't mean that they're telling the truth, and it doesn't mean that it's going to make it easier for you to just kind of deal with things, because it's actually crazy making to have to feel like something isn't quite right and know in your heart that there's something being kept from you. In the past position, we have the Hermit card. Yeah, because I don't know. I do so many rings that I can't keep them straight. But this is a card of either doing soul searching, so you just, even if you're with somebody else, but you spend time alone and you're just really thinking about your future and thinking about, what has been going on in your life and, what decisions should I make. But it can be separation, where you're actually living apart from this person. And, it's funny because we talk about, if we talk about quarantining and being alone, being forced to be alone or forced to be apart from another person, I mean, you could talk about that too, but that can lead to having more time to think about things in life. When you're on that hamster wheel and you're getting up and you're trying to rush so that you get to work on time, you don't really have time to think about deeper things in life. And there may be like a positive angle to that. But I have to think that there's also an angle that keeps people kind of trapped in situations that they really don't want to be in, but they don't have enough energy to get themselves out of because they're always so distracted by just like day-to-day living. So if you're like, legally separated from somebody, the same thing. But even what I was getting at before is that with a work situation, if you're forced to stay at home, that can make you, it can, like being away from a toxic situation can make you kind of stop and think and say, wow, maybe this is really not that great, the situation I'm in. Maybe I should kind of think about getting myself out of this. And like you have that aha moment. That could be what the Ace of Swords is. And the Ace means beginning, so it means that you're able to have new beginnings because your head has become clear. So you're able to see things more clearly. And before, you may have been confused. You may have been torn in different directions. I know within myself, I mean, even with relatively minor things, sometimes it is kind of like maddening, when you're trying to, even something silly like, gee, what should I do today on a Sunday? Should I take a bike ride? Or even if I'm going to take a bike ride, should I go here or should I go there? And being, really torn between two locations. And it's always so comfortable, I guess you would call it, when you can make a decision and you just know it's the right one and you're not even like agonizing over it. The higher message is the Seven of Swords. And this is a card of, I always call it the, getting out of Dodge card, or, kind of like being very discreet in trying to extricate yourself from a situation. So, like for instance, I brought up a work situation. If you've had time to think about something and now you're like, wow, I can't believe I have put up with this. I've been on lockdown for the last 3 weeks and I never realized how stressful being around those people are. And now that I call my coworkers, and now, or even the job itself, if it was a very stressful job. And you know what? I kind of like not having to go there. I'm not missing it. Or if you, let's say you're a teacher, because the swords can be like about communication, learning, teaching, and stuff like that. So if you're a teacher, and let's say you teach online or something like that, you might say, something, I feel like this is something that I would like to do full time because I don't have to deal with all the other nonsense. So it might be like going it alone. I mean, that's one of the interpretations, as well as in some cases this card can represent that you are being cheated in some way. Either somebody's stealing from you. So in, like if this is a personal relationship, and given the Hermit card, if you've been separated from somebody and because you want the truth, like you've been really, and you feel like you can't, that feeling of when you know somebody's lying to you but you can't prove it, that is the worst feeling in the world, because you feel like you're crazy, and you also feel like a bad person, because what kind of person would accuse another person, falsely accuse somebody. And so when you are in this state where you're just, I need the truth, and you're willing to like separate so that you don't have to believe somebody's lies, it gives you that clarity when you've had that time alone, and then you realize, yes, you can admit it to yourself, yes, this person is, or maybe you catch that person in the act in some way. This is the higher message, so it really is about the philosophical angle of like, what does that say about you? And that, I think that sometimes if somebody tolerates that kind of situation, it's in part because they feel like if they admit that somebody's cheating on them, that it says something about them, that it means that they're not attractive, that they're not desirable, and that keeps them in that little bubble of denial. So by piercing the bubble with that sword, you realize that it has nothing to do with that. That's that person's choice and their actions. And yes, I do believe that sometimes these situations, maybe a lot of times, that it is it's not just that person that is creating the situation. I do believe that we all play our parts, and yet at the end of the day, it is that person's decision whether or not they're going to choose to go outside of the relationship because they're not happy with something in the relationship. That sounds like an excuse to me. You can always do something else. But the other thing this card could represent is strategizing and saying, I want to change my life. I'm ready to make change. The Ace of Swords. I'm ready to forge a new path, but I have to plan. I don't want to be going off half-cocked. And getting back, I want to say one thing about the Seven of Swords as it relates to theft. In addition to like the theft of some kind of objects, and this can even be like if you're with somebody and you think that they're stealing from you, stealing your jewelry. Maybe this isn't even a partner, but a child, an adult child. That's sad, but let's face it, it could happen. And especially, with a Cancer parent who's might be very indulgent, or, wanting that very close relationship with that child, and that child, if they have an addiction or something like that, and they have problems, and maybe the Cancer parent doesn't want to face that truth, and finally you're seeing it, maybe you get evidence. But the thing is that it's the act of the deception is what's hurtful. And also, because we're looking at this from a philosophical point of view, but if you are in denial and you're refusing to see the truth, that is not helping that person. Also, if this is intellectual theft, so maybe let's say you are in an advertising field, or like I said, in the teaching field, and there's somebody who has, and you've always like resented, they're stealing your lesson plans, or they're just trying to copy you in some way. And now that you're kind of isolated, you're not in the office, that person can't copy from you. And so you finally realize the extent of what was happening, So anyway, that's always kind of like a tricky card for me, because it does have different connotations, and sometimes I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What crosses you is the Four of Cups, and this is a card you can clearly see if you're interpreting that the person's expression is rather flat, is not engaged, and there may be another person who's offering something. Sometimes that offer can be kind of, it's like when, what word would I use? Like, insincere, or maybe you don't feel, maybe you've been hurt so many times before that you don't believe somebody when they promise you that they're never going to do X, Y, or Z again, and you just are done. And there's nothing, you've seen the light, Ace of Swords, you've seen the light, and you're done, and it's really over. And actually, I have this, which makes me think that that's absolutely the case. And I just think of myself, even though I'm not a sun in Cancer, I just am that type of person as well. It's like I give people the benefit of the doubt, and then there's just that moment. And maybe a lot of people would have quit long before me, but then once it's over, it's done. And this is why other people sometimes do not change, because they don't have to change. There's nothing that they have to adapt to. I always tell people, when you change, everything around you changes. You don't have to change other people. You can't change other people, but you don't even have to, harbor the hope that somebody else is going to change. They will automatically change because they will have to adjust to the new you. And this is one of the reasons why you have to focus on yourself. If you want anything in life, if you don't like what somebody else is doing, that's even more reason to focus on yourself. Because the more that you become autonomously happy, you're not dependent on another person for your happiness, the more that you will influence that person. They will see that they cannot control you through their actions. Because sometimes I really do feel like people know when their actions are upsetting to other people, and it's not that they're doing that necessarily, on a conscious level to upset, but they know that it's almost like they know that they have power over another person. So if you're dealing with somebody who has an addiction, for instance, and like I said, with that top row, that could be possibly it. Maybe it's a spouse with an addiction too, and that's very upsetting if you think that they're stealing from you in some way, maybe money from the checking account, who always has an excuse. But whoever it is, the point is that when they know that their drinking or their using, puts you in a tizzy, it may give them a kind of a sense of like they have, sense of empowerment, even though it's a negative form of empowerment. That they have that power, that control over you, that they can control your mood. If you get to a point where they cannot change your patterns, you are not going to stop living your life. You're not going to stop having fun. This is what the whole idea of breaking, codependency is all about, is that you don't stop living your life because another person chooses to be out of control in their life. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The book Codependent No More by Melody Beattie is a classic, and it's something that I think is also a spiritual book, because it really applies to so many things in life. It's very easy, especially if you're an empath, if you're somebody who considers yourself very sensitive. It's easy to get thrown in a tizzy, and then kind of like, if it's not spiraling down completely, but just kind of like stop doing what you love to do and kind of trying to control and those kinds of things. And it's a terrible way to go through life. So choosing happiness, choosing to believe that everyone is responsible for their own actions, you're a natural caretaker. So it's, you may be a natural candidate for being a codependent, but you can break that cycle. And I think that it first comes from the mind of being able to see exactly what's going on, and having that clarity of like, this is not my problem. This person might be blaming me, but it's not my problem. Or, chronic infidelity. This is not because I didn't do this or that. It's because this person chooses to go outside of the relationship. And I don't have to make this into something about me and not being good enough and having to prove that I'm good enough, and that sort of thing. What's coming in, or the advice, is the Death card. It's accepting the transitions. This is transformation, or transition is the word. Isn't it interesting that there is a kind of like, I guess you'd call it a new agey way of saying that somebody died, and you say that person made their transition. And I like the white rose. I guess that's kind of a symbol of the purity that comes in spite of the end. There's always that beginning, or maybe the healing. But anyway, that physical death can be described as a transition, but also in our life we have these times of great change. And of course, this is, I believe this is going to be the last of the eclipses in Cancer, as well as your opposite sign Capricorn. And so you're experiencing a lot of change. And some of it can feel extremely unsettling. You may have already experienced this. Just thinking of somebody who's a Cancer who I know, who, shocked me with an incredible life decision that, ending a marriage of many, many years. Never thought in a million years that these two people, it's very sad to me, but it takes a lot of guts, because, Cancers are very, they love very deeply. And I feel like if somebody makes that decision with that kind of history with that person, there must have been a lot that they tolerated until they couldn't tolerate anymore. And even though it's sad, I'm very impressed that person was able to do that. And but still haven't gotten divorced, so you never know. But these kinds of major changes definitely can feel unsettling, like the ground is completely unstable. But you have to believe that they're leading to something better. And you're going to have the North Node in May go into your 12th house in Gemini, and that's going to bring like a spiritual emphasis, for what your life is destined to experience. And this may be the prelude to that, this year of change. But we are going to have eclipses in Sagittarius and Gemini as well, because the nodes are tied to that. So it's not like it's not going to happen this year as well, that your spiritual life will maybe take a turn or just blossom, and you will start to figure it out. Maybe that's what the Hermit card is about, is that you're coming into this new phase of spiritual awakening. And the outcome is the Knight of Pentacles, nice and grounded, kind of like maybe finding refuge in work, the daily grind, if you will, but not seeing it as such. Even if you're, at home, if you have the kind of job, like I mentioned, something intellectual, a teacher, a writer, where you're, it's not really dependent on the physical presence anymore. You can do it through the internet or what have you. You may just kind of like take refuge in that because your personal life may be kind of on the rocks or feel a little bit iffy. But maybe this is, if you're the kind of person that you are totally being waylaid, then perhaps you're just really getting into your garden. Who knows? I mean, usually Knight of Pentacles is like, I want money, I want this, I want, I want to build, be that kind of builder and things like that. But anything that is of the earthy variety with the Pentacles might be featured. So it's just about having that kind of consistency and grounding oneself and feeling that you have this maybe this routine, this sense of like order in your life that can make up for anything else that feels a bit uncertain. So that's what I have for you, Cancer. I hope that this resonated. If you'd like a private reading, most of my readings are astrology based, although I do offer tarot readings as well. And the link to my website is below. It is RenaMoonAstrology.com. Take care. Bye.